excited to be here today, this morning, Mirakl Morning, in the cabana. And hopefully you all got a little bit of coffee, maybe a little bit of pastry. And now we're ready to set our engines to hyperspeed. We're here to talk about the incredible work that Mirakl has done with our shared client Rakuten, along with our partner Symbiosys. I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate Bashar on the announcement last week, the DoorDash acquisition of Symbiosys. We're so thrilled for them. We're so proud of them. Very, very exciting. I think, I hear a tiny applause over there. You're welcome to clap. Really incredible. We're just so grateful. And the power of the technology is really what we're here to talk about. And so you don't need further endorsement, but this is really what the purpose is to talk about what we've been able to accomplish with Rakuten. And so we're going to do some storytelling, but first we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Hallock. I am the VP of Sales for the Americas for Mirakl. You all may know Mirakl is about 12 years old. Started off with a platform for marketplace software. We actually power more than 450 retailers worldwide in their marketplace, activating their third-party marketplace. And when I joined to oversee the ads business, we really were just having this conversation about how really the ads opportunity is one that really catalyzes the opportunity for a Rakuten to actually monetize their marketplace. And so we call it the flywheel. We're going to be talking quite a bit about that. But Bashar, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with Mirakl Mornings. I'm Bashar Kachachi. I'm the founder and CEO of Symbiosys. Symbiosys, started the company about 3 years ago. We are an off-site retail media platform. And what that means is we essentially help retailers and their brands and marketplace sellers run campaigns leveraging retailer first-party data for audience targeting and for closed-loop measurement. But not on-site. So rather than on-site, we're focused on channels like Google and Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest and TikTok, YouTube, channels like that. So sort of, and then we talk about it in terms of on-site being the very bottom of the funnel. Mm-hmm. Off-site is really reaching users across the full funnel, right?
That's right.
But yes, nice to be here and great to meet you all.
We're excited to chat with you today. Kristina.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Kristina. I'm based in Paris, so sorry for the little accent. So I'm head of monetization for Rakuten France. The main goal of my team is to implement different ad tech solutions in order to maximize the monetization potential of our marketplace. Mm-hmm. And of course, we do direct sales to brands and to advertisers, to agencies. And the main idea behind is to leverage as a source of revenue besides commissions that we generate from sellers on the marketplace.
Great, thank you so much. So when we talk about the flywheel, anyone who's on LinkedIn, which I think is everyone these days, sees this word absolutely everywhere. And the idea is that, to use another analogy, the total is greater than the sum of its parts. And so the idea is once you release the flywheel, I think Jim Collins, 20 years ago, sort of popularized that term, that once you get the right components in place, you're going to move faster than you would if those were not in place altogether. And so when we look at the flywheel, does anyone know what this is? You can squint and not cheat. Did anyone recognize what this is? I'm not sure if this is an apocryphal story. This is allegedly the napkin on which Jeff Bezos, before he was going to space in super yachts, sketched for the concept of Amazon. And really, when we start talking about the idea of it, we have written it out so that you don't have to read his handwriting necessarily. There's a lot to it. And the idea, the inspiration that he had was that if you start to add in greater assortment through something like Marketplace, sort of endless aisle, that you can actually start monetizing even more effectively through advertising because there's increased competition for those ad slots. And so when you read the article in The Information a couple months ago talking about how Amazon has gotten too expensive for certain sellers, you know that there's 30,000 sellers in line behind them to buy that ad spot. And that's really the density that he envisioned back on that napkin in, I think it was 2000. Which is crazy to think about. And so, Kristina, I'm going to have you talk about Rakuten. Rakuten was very early and retail media. I think you started what we consider retail media back in 2013, when you were just a child in elementary school, probably. So you want to just talk about what you've done in the time that you've been here?
Yeah, I take it as a compliment. Not really, but let's think this. Yeah, actually, like we have started indeed in 2013, but at this moment we haven't called this retail media. It was trade marketing, sponsor ads, and what we have done in the first place, we have developed our own in-house solution. It was pretty simple, pretty efficient. It was only sponsor ads, no banners, no CPM formats, and we didn't really have a back office for merchants, so they just were able to create their campaigns by choosing keywords, by pushing products that they want to push. So it was really very easy. And actually the idea behind retail media, it's this. So just with the time, we got many layers, so many more technologies. So yes, it was the first step. Then the second one, we have adopted a technology, I will not name it, but technology which was designed for marketplaces, and it helped us to increase our relevancy in ads that we show on the marketplace, and to have the back office actually to make this experience for merchants much more smoother, because they could orchestrate the campaigns better than it was before with our in-house solution. And then the third step, actually, it was when we have started to talk about retail media. I think it was 2019, 2020. Maybe it was early in the US, but in France it was at this time that we have really started to talk about the fact that not only sellers need to be need the visibility on the marketplace, but also external brands, because they see our e-commerce platform as a true media channel, and they can get to this purchase intended buyers. And so this is why we need to give them these possibilities through a platform. And so this is how we have ended up to add another platform with a waterfall logic, which is clearly not an ideal solution. So we were calling the first platform, then the second one, and we were thinking that by this we will able to get like 100% of fill rate, but of course it's not the case. And so this is how we got this understanding that we actually need a one platform, but platform which will be able to address both merchants and brands from the one place, so an unified advertising solution. And this is how we met Mirakl.
Amazing. It's a miracle. Thank you. That's such a cool story. And how long have you been with Rakuten? What part of this journey have you been on?
Sorry, I haven't really present Rakuten. Indeed, for my part, it's 6 years that I have been with Rakuten. And actually, we're talking about Rakuten France. I know that in US it's pretty well known, but actually it's a Japanese company, developed at the same time actually that Amazon, also with books selling online. And today it's a big company with a lot of services in the digital field. For example, Viber is making part of Rakuten, Kobo is ebooks, also making part of Rakuten, and all different businesses across the world. And but in France, we are positioned as a third marketplace on the French market with 15 million unique visitors and a pretty huge catalog, actually, with 200 million references, which is really a challenge when we talk about retail media. Like I think product team of Mirakl, they're not here, but it was really difficult for them to like ingest all these lines and to be able to sort them and to address the right ad spots, right ads on different ad spots.
So much of the conversation yesterday, the panels that I went and listened to, talked about this idea of personalization one-to-one at scale. And it's amazing to me, you know, I've been in ad tech for almost 12 years, 13 years, and that's the conversation we were having 12 years ago. So how do we have personalization one-to-one at scale? And it feels like it's finally sort of coming to fruition, which is very exciting for me to get to watch and for us to get to do it together. I'm very proud of that. So let's keep talking. You know, this is sort of, for anyone in the room who doesn't deal with marketplace specifically, there's some insights that I find particularly compelling, which is when you look at the seller that's in a marketplace, they actually over-index for what % of their GMV they spend in advertising. And if you think about that, it's really that they don't have brand dollars that they're focused on deploying. They're really focused on performance. And so what we see is if the average advertiser is investing something like 1 to 2% of GMV, once you get into the marketplace, it's actually 3 to 5%. And when you start to look at Walmart, when you look at Amazon, they're looking at 85% of their retail media revenue coming from what we call long tail. And I don't know about you, but every retail media network that I work with, that revenue leader is being told, go activate the long tail. And the response is usually, well, I don't know how. How am I supposed to do that? And so the Mirakl Ads technology was really developed to support that. We have a client at Wharton in Portugal. And when she talks about how they've been able to activate, she also talks about how this has actually really lifted up the shopper experience. And so if you're going on site, you're searching for a particular product, and there is no surfacing of that product through sponsored content, it's actually less helpful. You go to a site, I'm an Amazon shopper, I go and I look for information. I find it helpful that information is actually being surfaced on site. We did some research actually with Forrester right before Shop Talk, and it really validated that. So she's sharing sort of her anecdotal experience of it. We went and looked at the numbers, and the numbers say the same thing, which is when you start to look at what the customer experience is like when you have ads activated, it's a richer customer experience. It's a richer shopper experience, which we're always sort of talking about the merchants and how they sort of want to of course, have control over the user experience, and this is something that actually really enhances it and supplements it. So I don't know who chose this graphic on your team, but I want to eat a whole pint of ice cream right now. I'm going to go do that as soon as we're done. But Bashar, if you could just sort of talk about, what is Symbiosys doing? Symbiosys, sorry, I noticed you say it that way. Talk about what the purpose of the partnership with Rakuten is really for. And, couldn't have been more timely that it's a DoorDash comp. I love that. Yeah, share more.
So Symbiosys, just for context, is, like I said earlier, sort of an off-site retail media platform. There's a lot of technology and infrastructure supporting on-site retail media, and on-site, has been just a great driver of growth. I'd say probably in the ad sector over the last 5 years, it's the number one growth driver, right? If you look across the whole sector, and it's unlocked a huge opportunity for consumer brands and for marketplace sellers to reach the user at the point of purchase, right? So very, very strong performance for that reason. That's, somebody's there to basically buy a product. But I think what we've sort of, what we sort of saw and what we built really our whole company around was a thesis that, while that on-site is a, phenomenal driver of growth and a great opportunity, the scale is inherently limited, right? There's only so many opportunities to reach a user at the point of purchase. And probably most of the time they've kind of made up their mind, right? They've already concluded their product research.
As you said, they're low in the funnel.
They're at the very bottom of the funnel, right? And so, Symbiosys, what we do is we help retailers and retail media networks sort of extend to be able to reach the full funnel and to be able to help their brands and marketplace sellers reach users across the full funnel. And the reason that that's important is if you think about, and I think there's some research that shows this, where are users beginning their shopping journeys? It's really across different places, right? They're sort of active on Google doing product research. They are on YouTube, watching product review videos and on TikTok doing the same thing. And they're engaging in social commerce on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and places like that. And so we, our mission was to really help retailers and marketplaces incorporate that media into their retail media network and to help brands run campaigns across those channels, leveraging retailer first-party data, reaching shoppers sort of when they're beginning their consumer journees, if that makes sense.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And so let's talk about what it looks like to pull these components together. So we're going to start speeding up. Hopefully everyone's buckled in. I'd love to talk a little bit about this because this is sort of your larger point. One of the panels that I attended yesterday was talking about the concept of loyalty. And they were saying that so much budget is spent on acquisition, but less is actually spent on retention. But acquiring a new customer is more expensive than retaining an existing one. But there's this balance for retail media, which is that you own the site, you want them to transact on that exact site, and yet you do have to go out to the rest of the internet, social media, et cetera, to actually go acquire that customer. And so when we look at the numbers, and we've cited our source here, most of the budget is focused on acquisition. Can you sort of talk about how you balance that, Kristina?
Yeah, I can say even that our acquisition budget today dedicated to Google Shopping even bigger than this. So really we spend a lot on Google Shopping, and it's our first cost line. And so actually what Symbiosys is doing with Mirakl Ads is like really business opportunity for us, because we can reduce our customer acquisition cost, and by this we actually get this flywheel effect, because we help to our sellers to get more sales, because we drive the sales from outside. We attract new customers, and we do this by reducing our own costs. By this we can reinvest, we can put this like somewhere else, or just doing more. So it's really a business opportunity for us, and it was actually one of the reasons why we have chosen Mirakl Ads, because on some categories before we had this leftovers which were not spent, because we were missing traffic, or I don't know, because maybe budget was too high from some merchants on some categories and we were not able to spend it. So this is why we are really looking forward to this launch. We will launch it beginning of July, and we'll see how we can increase this possibility to get new customers by reducing our budget.
I always say the worst thing you can do in media is underspend a budget, because you don't get that money back. You don't get fired for overspending. You can say, oh, fat finger, oh my God, I was supposed to say 20,000, it said 200,000. You underspend, you're gone. No place for you. So this is the funnel you were talking about. I'd love for you to just sort of go a little bit deeper on it. Talk to us about what we're looking at, if you don't mind, for the folks at home who might not be super familiar. And then I'd love for you to just sort of talk about, again, what Kristina's talking about with Google Shopping as an example, why it's so important for them to be able to activate that budget if the on-site inventory isn't sufficient to cover the amount of money that advertiser wants to spend. How do we give the people what they want?
Yeah. Well, this is a great diagram here. I mean, this was sort of, we put something like this together fairly early on to just sort of illustrate, our perspective and kind of how we fit into the overall picture. When we first started the company, I would say, we looked around and we saw that, at least 90% of the focus in retail media was at the very bottom of the funnel on retailer.com.
Yeah.
And that's, everyone's pretty familiar with that. It's sponsored product ads and then some display and video as well, but on, at the point of purchase. And like I said, it's been a super success, a huge success story really in terms of how much growth it's seen and in the performance that it's unlocked for consumer brands and for marketplace sellers. There was also a little bit of focus on the top of the funnel at the time with regards to retail media. A lot of this was in the realm of programmatic and kind of showing ads across the open web, which is also generally good for brand building and for generating awareness. But what we didn't really see was any focus at all kind of in the middle of the funnel. And that's what we kind of started talking about, the middle of the funnel. But that's really where, in places like Google Shopping and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Pinterest, that's really where consumers are beginning their shopping journeys. They're generally not beginning them on the open web when they're reviewing, when they're at a news site or if they're watching, a TV show. They're not actively shopping, right? It's a good place to generate awareness, but and the research showed that where they begin their shopping journeys is really kind of in these places. And specifically, they're going to Google to do product research or other search engines, right, to do product research. They are engaging in social commerce and kind of asking, their network and their friends about certain products and if if anyone's bought this or that. And they are watching product review videos on YouTube and TikTok. It's kind of become a really, really big thing. And I think if you exclude Amazon.com, probably 80-90% of consumer journeys are beginning in these spots.
Wow.
Right. And so that was sort of part of the impetus to say, hey, you know what? Like this should be part of the picture.
Right.
And there isn't really any good sort of technology platforms out there to help enable this and facilitate it. And a really important component is how do you activate the retailer's data into the middle of the funnel.
Right.
And so that's a little bit of our focus, and this is sort of our perspective on on this slide.
And meat's just such an important need for the retailer, and it's a partnership that I'm incredibly proud of. So thank you for talking us through that. All right, here we go. Our faces are starting to melt. We're coming into the final. We're exiting the stratosphere. I'd love for you to talk about this. This is a proof of concept that we did with Rakuten. Probably feels like a million years ago now. We did a head-to-head with their existing technology. They wanted us to earn it, and I think we did. Can you just sort of talk about? I mean, we almost doubled your ad response rate. That's incredible to me. So talk to me about what this looked like.
Yes, it's true that we have not really believed in beautiful sales talk from the first sight. We said, okay, maybe, but we need to test it. So yes, this is how we have ended up to make a 3 months POC on just one category. It was house category.
Mm-hmm.
I can specify that our strongest category is high tech. So to make sure that we were so much confident, we took the second, third one to be sure that we will not lose anything, because really when you test new technology, you never know. And so yes, we split the traffic and we implement both, and we have seen from the first days that Mirakl was able to respond much more. The fill rate was much higher. If I remember well, it was 60% in fill rate, and it's huge, because it means that all our ad requests that we were sending, part of them were not taken into account by our old technology, but Mirakl was able to address an advert on this ad request.
Right.
And then, of course, we were waiting for CTR confirmation, because it's not enough to just have a good fill rate. You really need to have the pertinent ads that you show.
Yep.
And so when we saw that CTR was also much more higher, this is how we made the decision, okay, it's a really good technology, relevant, and as I have already said, it's answering our need to address both merchants and brands from the one platform.
Yep. So this is a case study that we've published, and I'm the seller who's selling the dream, and I get asked, well, how did you do this? Why do you have a higher ad response rate? And the answer is because the algorithm that Mirakl developed favors the shopper session to understand what is that item that is most likely to sell, what is the keyword that's appropriate, and then what is the user behavior on site. And we're adding all of that up before we actually bid. And I think the emerging technologies had a chance to sort of get it right and sort of improve what might have been built a certain way with legacy technologies. And so what you're really seeing is just sort of that emergence of this sort of second wave of retail media technology. And the results are quite clear. So this we're kind of in the final stretch here. We have not burned up on exit. Do you want to just sort of talk about the audience all the way down to measurement piece? Like, how do we really nail this? How do we get this right?
Yeah, I think audience is like a really huge key. I think, with regards to on-site, I think audience is important, but there are other intent signals, obviously, like the keyword that somebody's searching for. When you talk about off-site, on some places, keyword is a very strong signal, obviously, like search engines, but most of it is really pretty reliant on the audience, and that's really the unique thing that retailers and marketplaces are bringing to offsite retail media is their audience. They're giving brands and sellers the ability to reach their audience, their specific shoppers across across all of those different offsite channels, search, social, video channels, even open web. To a large extent. And so audience is key. And then the question is, how do you use audience, right? What exactly are you trying to accomplish? And we've seen growing sophistication in that direction, right? It kind of started with, all right, let me just reach anyone who's been to this retailer.com in the last 12 months, which is, I think, a reasonable starting point. But over time, we've seen folks develop sophistication in terms of, hey, let me find category shoppers, right, that are looking for, that are actively shopping in this area, or shopping cart abandoners, or even more sophisticated, let me find my lapsed customers, me as a brand, people have been buying my product at this retailer.com maybe 3 times in the last year, but 0 times in the last 90 days. Maybe they've switched to a competitor. How do I re-engage them? And then I think the last thing is just sort of, going back to earlier discussion around how do you find new customers,
right.
new to brand.
Yep.
So a little bit distinct from new to retailer, right? And how do I optimize that new customer acquisition metric for the brand and kind of maximize the value that they're getting from their campaign. And so audience, is the foundation that enables all of these different use cases. You could think of some of these use cases as things somebody might want to custom design,
right.
But it also opens the door for AI and for building, you can think about it, the end state, every single campaign should have a custom built audience that's
right.
sort of tailor-made just for that campaign, based on its unique objectives and how users are responding. So that's sort of the audience piece. I think closed loop measurement is obviously super important as well. It starts out with conversion measurement and measuring across the full funnel, right? Some of it is post-click and some of it is post-view or post-engagement,
right.
which is a little bit more challenging to do, but it's nonetheless pretty important. And then on top of that, you start to build more advanced analytics. Well, how many folks that I acquired were new to brand, right? And are they new to brand, or are they new to the product line, right? Are they new to the family of brands? Are they new to category, et cetera? So there's all kinds of rich analytics. And then I think the next frontier on that is going to be, well, of the new to brand, which ones are likely to be high lifetime value for my brand versus medium or lower lifetime value? So there's just so much that can be done in both of these dimensions, audience and measurement. And I think, sort of AI and machine learning are really important tools that are going to kind of help in that.
Really driving it along. Yeah, the concept of the profitability of a customer, specifically the profitability of which ad you're going to serve them, which product you're going to choose to display based on this algorithm, is one that I call it sort of 2.0. It's a little more sophisticated than just kind of nailing the techniques. And so that's one, hopefully I think we're going to hear about it quite a bit this week. Obviously measurement is always a very popular topic, and so we're going to hear a lot about that. But I think profitability of the customer is one that's really emerging as well. We did it! Good job. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Kristina. Thank you, Bashar. Congrats again on the DoorDash announcement.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
just
you
so
very
happy
much.
for you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.